purification leads to it. Now, purification can happen simply by hearing scriptures. But if we understand the values that are given in scriptures, then the purification can happen much faster. So if you are approaching scripture only at the literal level, then while we are hearing scripture, there is some purification. But if you also understand scripture at the ethical level, then after we have finished our hearing, subsequently when we also have to make choices, that will also purify us. So when we hear scripture only at the literal level, then it can just be like especially scriptural pastimes, it can be just like a pious form of entertainment. Somebody likes movies, somebody likes these folk tales, and somebody likes scriptural tales. It's good that they're hearing scriptural tales, but there is not much lasting transformation. So, this was the philosophical part. I'll stop here. And now, let's begin with the character of Hiranyakashipu. Each character has a backstory. Now we can just keep going backstory a long way. But we start at a particular time. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the pastime of Prahlad Maharaj is described in many places. It is described, it's in the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's an entire Narasimha Purana which describes the Leela. And Narasimha Purana, the Leela is described in somewhat different ways. But still, the overall pastime is very similar. And in the Bhagavatam, it starts with a particular point. And that point is, so we will look at 3 incidents from Hiranyakashipu's life today, 3 incidents from Prahlad's life tomorrow. And Narasimha's appearance is very short. But we look at 3 key points in his actions also. So like that, we'll focus on 3 things. Now, here, we look at Hiranyakashipu. See, in general, if we look at our life is, if I'm here right now, and if I look at my past, the past does not appear like one flat terrain to us. Sorry. It's not like one flat terrain. That is not how it appears for us is. Most days we don't even remember. But then some days, something very special happens. Then some other days, something terrible might happen. And these crests and troughs of our life are what we remember. And these are what shape us a lot. So there are key moments in everyone's life. Every day goes on in a routine way, but there are some times when some things happen, and then there are key moments when some things are done. So those are the key moments of life. So we look at Hiranyakashipu's key moments like that. So the Srimad Bhagavatam begins with Hiranyakashipu already as the king of the demons. He is the king of the demons, but he is infuriated. He's infuriated because Hiranyaksha has been killed. Who is Hiranyaksha? Yes. Hiranyaksha has been killed. And now, everything that happens, there is the event externally and there is the meaning that we give to that event internally. And what meaning a person gives to the event, that can completely vary from person to person. So, that depends on the mind of the person. So whenever something happens, how a person thinks about it reveals more about the person than about the event. Most of you probably know about this story. Once an anti-alcohol campaigner went to warn alcoholics, gathering of alcoholics, about how dangerous alcohol is. And he gave a fiery talk. And they said, now I'll demonstrate to you how deadly alcohol is. So, he had a small box in which he had brought a tiny insect. And there was a glass containing alcohol. So he opened that box and just flung that insect, turned that box upside down into the glass containing alcohol. The insect fluttered for a few moments and then it sank right to the bottom. So, what do all of you learn from this? Now the alcoholics became embarrassed, they started looking down. And one of them was very cheerful. Yes. Looking up, a bright smile on his face. So, what do you learn from this? He raised his hand. Yes. When we drink alcohol, all the germs and worms in our stomach will die. So, we do not see the world as it is. We see the world as it matters to us. As it matters to us. For somebody, alcohol matters, then they will see everything in those terms. So now, why was Hiranyakashipu killed? That story is described in the 4th canto, where he was a tyrant. He was not just a powerful demon. He was a powerful and maniac person. He was terrorizing people. He was terrorizing even the gods. And finally, Lord Vishnu appeared in an extraordinary form. Which was that form? Varahadev. He appeared in the form of Varaha, and after a fight, just finished him off, delivered him. But Hiranyakashipu, he interpreted this as, my brother was so heroic, but Vishnu appeared in a cunning form and tricked him into a unfair fight and killed him. Now, there was nothing unfair about the fight. There was nothing trickery. It was not that the boar suddenly pounced upon him. It was a fair fight. It was a fight 1 to 1 to 1. It was a fair fight. But he interpreted it, he tricked me. Why? Because he came in the form of a boar. Now, what's wrong with that? The demons also assume forms. So, in general, when there is ego, and demons have a very big ego. So what? So there are wrongs done by us, and there are wrongs done to us. So what happens with the person who has a very big ego? They forget the wrongs done by us, and then they remember the wrongs done to us. Now, what I did, that is a small thing, but what you did was a terrible thing. If I do something wrong, that's just an innocent trick. If you do something wrong, that is evil cheating. Now it's the same thing, but this is the nature of the ego. So now Hiranyakashipu had a huge ego. So he blamed Hiranyaksha's death on Vishnu and Vishnu's trickery. So in general, bad things will happen to everyone in life. That is just the nature of the world. The difference between the good people and the bad people. This is what Krishna tells Arjuna after Abhimanyu is killed. A similar incident. After Abhimanyu is killed, Krishna tells Arjuna that adversities will befall everyone in this world. As it is said, there are two kinds of people. There are people who are wise, and there are people who are otherwise. There are the virtuous people, there are the vicious people. So now, adversities will come upon everyone. That is just the nature of life. Just because we are good does not mean that adversities will not come. But the key difference, when bad things happen, the wise people, they act. How do they respond to it? They act to make things better. Now, when they act, not just act in ways that make things better. Whereas the demoniac people, they act in exactly the opposite way. They act in ways that make things better. That is the characteristics of the wise. And the characteristics of the unwise is, they act in ways that make things worse. So problems are there in everyone's life. And it is the test of character is how do we respond to problems. Now, this death of his brother, it could have triggered some introspection in Hiranyakashipu. My brother lived the demoniac way. And he was terrorizing, he was vandalizing, he was murdering. And if I do the same, maybe I meet the same fate. Maybe I should stop that. No. See, the difference between, again, the wise and the unwise people is, and why do they act differently? The wise people, they evaluate actions in terms of virtue. What is right and what is wrong. Whereas the unwise, the otherwise people, they simply evaluate actions in terms of power. That person was able to succeed because that person was more powerful. Now, power is a factor to be considered. But if we evaluate everything only in terms of power, then the world will just become like a jungle. Now, what differentiates human society from animal society is that it is not just ruled by power alone. If somebody is driving in a car and some person is trying to cross the road, the person in the car is much more powerful. So they just run over the other person and the other person is going to jump off the road. But where there is a civilized society, people follow rules. Okay, you are crossing the road, slow down. So if society is governed only by power, now power will definitely be one factor that is important, and power is also involved, required for solving problems. But the wise think first in terms of virtue, and then for exercising virtue also power is required. But the unwise, the demoniac, they think solely in terms of power. Okay, why did this person win? Now, technological power is coming in our way. Okay. So if we think solely in terms of power, then virtue, oh, maybe I did something wrong. That's why I suffered. If I go very fast, suppose somebody drives way above the speed limit, and then a cop pulls them over. And the cop asked, did you see the speed limit? He said, I saw the speed limit, I just didn't see you. So, if they think I'll become powerful enough so that the cops are in my pocket, and then I can do whatever I want. Then the idea is, we do not think of changing our actions at all. Maybe I did something wrong that needs to be fixed. The only thing that is wrong is that I don't have enough power to continue doing what I'm doing. And so that means that there is no inner change. Now, whenever adversity comes in our life, we have to respond either by inner change followed by outer change or solely by outer change. So when we think in terms of virtue, there is first an inner change. And then after that, if it is required, there can be an outer change also. But first and foremost is, okay, did I do anything wrong to cause this? Could I have acted in a better way? But when there is power, it's only, if something went wrong, that means I was not strong enough. I will just get more strength. I can just make more power. Then I can get along with it. I can do whatever I want. So, once there was an alcoholic, and the alcoholic got a terrible hangover. Now, he was a scientifically minded person also. So he said, this is so terrible. I hate that I was born in the 21st century. If only I was born in the 25th century. He said, okay, if you're born in the 25th century, would you have been magically free from alcohol? He said, no. By the 25th century, scientists would have discovered some trick by which you can drink alcohol without getting hangover. So the idea is some people think solely in terms of power. And that was Hiranyakashipu's thinking. So what did Hiranyakashipu think? He said that how was Vishnu able to kill me? Kill my brother? Because Vishnu is more powerful. Now I have to take revenge. But to take revenge, what do I have to do? So if right now, this is Hiranyakashipu and this is Vishnu. He acknowledges that Vishnu is more powerful. So he adopts a two-pronged strategy. His first strategy is that he will perform austerity. He will perform severe tapasya. And by the power of tapasya, he will become extremely powerful. And the second thing he says is, we will destroy dharma. He says, wherever yajnas are being performed, destroy those yajnastalis. Wherever sacrifices are being offered to the gods, stop all those sacrifices. If anybody insists on performing those sacrifices, kill those people. And he says, all these, his reasoning was, dharma and sacrifices are what nourish Vishnu. So if all dharma is stopped, then that will weaken Vishnu. And when this happens, when Vishnu becomes weaker, then when I attack him, I will win. So now his idea of the power of Vishnu is wrong, and that will be addressed by Prahlad later. But this was his idea, that any problem is due to simply power differentials. Solution is to correct the power differential, become more powerful than the opponent. So now when he just goes around, he tells his servants, the demons who have been assisting him, he says, all of you go around and desecrate the earth. Wherever dharma is being performed, destroy that place. So this is what, one thing is how we process, we tend to blame others and not blame ourselves. And that is a characteristic of ungodliness. But then after we blame, okay, we have to first solve. The second characteristic is thinking solely in terms of power. Now, in those times, basically people, even the demons, they had an understanding that there is something bigger than us. There is some power higher than us. Now, what exactly was Hiranyakashipu's understanding of the nature of the universe? We'll explore it shortly. But there are similarities. See, if you consider modern science and the scientific mind, the point here is not to criticize science per se, but science can very easily fuel the human ego. Science, and especially more than science, technology. Science can fuel the human ego at an intellectual level, but I can know everything, and technology can fuel it at a practical level. And that the problem is not science or technology. The problem is not in the past tapasya. Tapasya can be a good thing. Today is Ekadashi. Many of us try to fast on Ekadashi. The austerity is a good thing. It can be a good thing, but the point is, why is it being performed? So when somebody wants to increase their power, in the past, how is that done? In the past, it was done through tapasya. What is the understanding behind tapasya? That when austerity, tapa is performed, is understood that there are beings who are more powerful than us. And those beings have at their disposal greater powers, which they can give to us. So tapasya was performed to appease higher beings and thereby gain power. So it was to appease higher beings. So the vision of the universe was much more personal. Now in the present, the idea is if we lack power, gain more technology. Now the point is, in technology, Francis Bacon is one of the pioneers of the scientific method. So he said knowledge is power. The knowledge is power itself is a fairly valuable statement. But his idea was something much more specific. His idea was that nature is cruel. Nature sends storms and nature sends extreme cold and extreme heat. And technology or scientific knowledge and technological know-how will give us the power to bend nature to our will. So he was thinking of knowledge in that specific sense. So in the present, when we find that we lack power, we think I should gain more technology. And technology, it focuses not so much on higher beings as it's tap higher mechanisms. Now why am I using the word higher over here? Because these mechanisms have power far greater than what we have. And when these mechanisms are tapped, say for example, I was invited once to Cambridge to speak on science and spirituality. So when we were going there, we passed by the tree, which is said to be the same tree where Newton was sitting when the apple fell. Some people say it fell in front of him, some people say it fell on him. Whichever way, the apple fell on him. So that tree and that place is like a Tirtha Kshetra for scientists. It's a pilgrimage place. Think, oh, how brilliant was Newton that had just from an ordinary thing like a fall of an apple, he thought of the principle of gravity. And yes, that is a matter of brilliance, no doubt about it. But the point is, what was Newton doing over there? He says that he recognized that there is some higher power which has some sort of mechanism by which it works. So initially, most of the scientists, all the founders of science, were quite theistic. Newton accepted that God exists and God is the cause of all causes. But he wanted to know how God fashioned the world. So he's said to have said that, "O Father, I think thy thoughts after thee." What he means is that he saw his scientific discoveries. For him, they were almost like spiritual insights into how God has made the universe work. The spiritual insights into God's mind. Stephen Hawking concluded his book, The Brief History of Time, which is considered to be the world's most popular unread classic. When it came out, it was a very popular book. Everyone would, oh, have you read The Brief History of Time? People would buy the book, but people read a few pages, it makes sense, can't understand it. But everybody would say, I read this book. So anyway, he said that science will help us one day understand the mind of God. Now, he didn't believe in God, but he just used that to say that we want to uncover the mysteries of the universe. But Newton actually believed that, okay, God is a person, but he has made the universe work according to certain mechanisms. So we want to understand those mechanisms. And that is fair enough. When we consider Ayurveda is a theistic science. At the same time, it looks for mechanisms. Okay, somebody's got some sickness. What is the mechanical cause of the sickness? And okay, this particular substance is in imbalance. And then we take this food, or take this diet, or take this medication, that substance can be restored. So understanding the mechanisms that make the universe work is not a problem at all. But the problem is, why are we doing it? So as science advanced more and more, as we started understanding more and more the mechanisms by which the universe works, so slowly the vision of people who were leading science, it started degenerating. Originally, it was theism. Theism is the idea that God is both the creator and controller. But then after that they started saying, actually the whole universe is controlled by mechanisms. And therefore the idea became deism. Deism means God is the creator but not the controller. So the idea is that the universe is like a clock. The clockmaker made the clock and has given it to us. And now the clockmaker works according to the mechanism. But the clockmaker doesn't have any control on it. Of course, Apple has its control on watches. Still, that's different. But the idea is deism is God is only the creator, not the controller. So they started thinking that universe works only according to mechanisms. And as we advance in our understanding of the mechanisms, then we can gain more and more control. And we can become controllers. And eventually it led to atheism. That asatyam apratishthante jagadahuranishwaram. That God is neither the controller nor the creator. And so we can control everything. We can create our own life and our own meaning for life. And that's how things went down. So why we perform austerity? So whether it's scientific advancement, technological advancement, or the performance of tapasya. Externally they seem very different. Somebody working in labs doing research, and somebody else is going to the forest and sitting down, controlling their breath and controlling their food. The specifics can vary, but the ultimate process, the essential principle of the process is similar. That we are seeking some higher power to increase our power. And that itself is not a bad thing. Tapa is a good thing. But tapa, if it is used for an evil purpose, then it becomes evil. So Hiranyakashipu concluded that I will perform austerities. And his purpose in performing austerities was, I will gain so much power that I will destroy Vishnu. And it's interesting that when he's thinking about this, see, Krishna talks about three things in Bhagavad Gita. There is Jnana, Jnanam, Jneyam, Jnana, Gamyam, Hridi Sarvasya Vashtitam. There is Jnana, Jneya and Jnana Gamya. So Jnana is knowledge. What is it that we know? That is, Jneya is the object of knowledge. What is it that we are studying? For example, biology is knowledge. The object of knowledge is the natural world, the living world basically. We have botany and zoology in it. But then Jnana Gamya is the objective of knowledge. Objective of knowledge means, why am I studying it? Somebody may be studying biology because they love nature. Somebody may be studying biology because they love money. And they think that biology will be the tool for me to earn money. So to understand the difference between these three is very important. Jnana, Jneya and Jnana Gamya. Somebody may be a doctor with the expert knowledge of the human body. But are they studying medicine so that they can help and heal people? Or they can just make more and more and more money out of it? So they can complicate simple treatments and they can aggravate issues. And they do that, some doctors, as they say, cure our ills with their pills and then kill us with their bills. So, there is Jnana, Jneya and Jnana Gamya, the objective of knowledge. So, in the case of Hiranyakashipu, his objective was to destroy Vishnu. And sometimes we think that spiritual knowledge is transformational. But it's not that simple. There is philosophical knowledge, but again, even philosophical knowledge, what is it being used for? That is important. See, there is, this is an important point to understand now, that, as I said, there is jnana, there is knowledge, and then there is the purpose of knowledge. Now, here you could say spiritual knowledge, and then purpose of spiritual knowledge. So if you consider it this way, Hiranyakashipu says that actually performing sufficient tapasya by which I can get power enough to overpower Vishnu, this is an extremely difficult task. But there's no need to worry. Because the soul is eternal. Even if I can't get enough power in this life, then I'll continue this tapasya in a future life. I'll continue this tapasya life after life after life till in one lifetime I'll get enough power by which I can overpower Vishnu. If we understand this is the soul, later on, nade viduh swartha gatim hi Vishnu. If you understand that I am the soul, then why is he thinking material power is the solution to the soul? If what we know is not as important as what we do with what we know. So, there are many people who may have spiritual knowledge, but this is the quadrant we want to be in. Hiranyakashipu was in this quadrant. Was in this quadrant? He had spiritual knowledge. No, he was here. He had spiritual knowledge, but he did not have any awareness of the purpose of spiritual knowledge. In fact, he kept his own purpose. Like some people want a guru to show them the way. Others want a guru to sanction their way. This is what I want to do, and you just be an Ashirwad Baba. Give me some Ashirwad so that I can continue what I am doing. Well, yeah. Then the guru becomes more like a cosmetic to show people I have a guru. The guru is not a guide in this situation. So Hiranyakashipu had knowledge, but he was sarvarthan viparitam. The Bhagavad Gita Krishna says that those whose determination in the mode of ignorance, they interpret everything the opposite of what it is. Adharmam dharmamitiya manyate tamasavrata sarvarthan viparitam buddhi saparthatamasi. And then with this he performed immense austerity. And finally, after a long period of austerity, he performed his austerity to please Brahma. And then Brahma appeared. And when Brahma appeared at that time, when he started performing austerity, it caused a big disruption in the universe. Because austerity gives power. And then, if power is concentrated in one place in an inordinate way, that disturbs the balance of the universe. So, when this immense austerity was being performed, then Brahmaji decided to, he said, okay, this power is causing a lot of disruption. Then, he said, okay, he went there and he gave him the benediction that he sought. So, it's like, now in the world we have, through technology, we have nuclear power. We have weapons of mass destruction. And now there are few countries which have those weapons of mass destruction. And then some countries want that power. And they are determined, they are seeking those powers, and maybe they are doing it in an unregulated way. And sometimes they may get that power, and if that is not regulated, they may cause a huge amount of devastation. So then, even if that country is like a rogue state, it's a rogue actor, but at least that, let them not use nuclear power in a very disruptive way. So the world body or the world organization will say, okay, you can also join our league. You can also get nuclear powers, but join us and then sign some treaty about how you should use nuclear power. So like that, Brahmaji saw that he got so much power by his austerity, that power was disrupting the world. Okay, what do you want? He says, that country may want to be recognized as a member of the elite club. So like that, Hiranyakashipu said, when he came forward, now here Hiranyakashipu is very intelligent. His purpose was to kill Vishnu. But he did not tell that as the purpose. In one sense, when he wanted to kill Vishnu, he wanted to be immortal. And when he wanted to be immortal, he phrased it in a very tricky way. He tried to think of all the ways in which Vishnu had outwitted people in the past. He said that, okay, first he said, grant me immortality. And Brahma said, I can't do that. Because I myself am not immortal. Oh. Hiranyakashipu was disappointed. Okay. Then he thought that I can trick. So he said, okay. He said, grant me a benediction by which I will not be killed by any human being or any animal, by any being created by me. I will not be killed in the day or in the night, inside the house or outside the house, on the ground or in the air. Like that, he gave a series of conditions. And he thought, in this way, he had tricked Brahma. And by trick, he had got immortality. And Brahmaji said, oh, what you asked is very difficult. But tathastu. He granted him the benediction. Now when he granted him the benediction, the underlying search was for immortality. That is something we all human beings long for. Now immortality is definitely possible, but it's possible at the spiritual level. When immortality is sought at the material level, that requires disruption of the rules of nature. And we'll talk about this, why the disruption of the rules of nature happens when immortality is sought at the material level in tomorrow's session a little bit more. We'll talk about Prahlad's instructions. But that what Hiranyakashipu was seeking is not so different from what we are seeking. Now there is a whole school of thought associated with technology. It is called as transhumanism. Now transhumanism is actually, its starting point is the same as the Bhagavad Gita. It says, human life is filled with problems. There is old age, there is disease, there is death, and then there is birth. Now for them, birth is a problem which can be avoided. It is not rebirth, but birth. For them, the solution is abortion. But they say there are so many inconveniences. And what do we have to do? We have to make technological advancement to solve all these problems. So there are various ways in which things are being attempted. It's a quest for immortality. So there is, one of my friends, he recently turned 50 and he was in America. He said, as soon as he turned 50, he got more than 50 emails. He said, your life begins at 50. And he says, if you have digestive problems, you take this. If you have hair loss problems, you take this. You have this therapy, you have this remedy, that remedy. If you have tooth problem, you have this remedy. He says, now all problems have remedy. So he thought that, what all these people need is some illusion remedy. That actually, yes, as we grow older, the end of our life starts coming closer and closer. And the idea is the gerontology is a study of old age. And yes, if people are old, if you can give them comfort as much as possible so that life is not too painful for them, that's fine. But the hope, gerontology makes so many hopes that, you can put this hair dye and you can do this cosmetic, you can use this and you can do that and become young. And sometimes people may be able to look young, but the body is growing old. So the World Gerontological Association put a statement in public interest. It says, we don't have any remedy, pill, surgery or anything of that sort that can reverse, slow or stop the aging process. Now we cannot reverse means you cannot make old people young. We cannot slow down your becoming old, and then we cannot stop it. And what can we do? We can only create an illusion that you're not becoming old. That is all that we can do. So the idea is that there is the aspiration for immortality. That none of us wants to die. This is a natural aspiration. And it is to be fulfilled. It can either be fulfilled at a spiritual level by raising our consciousness, or at a material level by increasing our power. It could be technological power or whatever power. At a spiritual level, when we raise our consciousness, then this is something that works. But at a material level, when we try to increase our power, the technological power, medical power, whatever it is, then this eventually backfires. It doesn't work. So the Gerontological Association said that the aging process is like the moving of the stars. Even if we come to know the mechanism, we cannot stop the stars from moving. We cannot stop the celestial objects from moving. So it is It is there are things which are beyond our control. And that does not mean that just because there are things beyond our control doesn't mean that we are powerless and we are condemned. No, there is a way to live in harmony with higher powers. But that is something which the demoniac mind does not accept. And Hiranyakashipu thought that I have been successful. Now I have gained immortality. And he came back victorious to resume his reign of terror on everyone. When somebody gains power, the power can give pleasure through two ways. When we use power to do service to others, to do good to others. And then seeing the good that we have done, that gives us some satisfaction. But if somebody does not have that service attitude, then power, the only way it gives pleasure is by causing fear in others. Just as soon as I am there, how many people start trembling. So for him, they had no service attitude. So the power was given pleasure only through the fear that he induced in others. But there was one person in whom he could induce no fear. Who was that? Prahlad. And that's where, even in this life, his plans completely stalled. And then they backfired. So that we will discuss tomorrow. So, I'll summarize what we discussed today. The first point we discussed is levels of approaching scriptural pastimes. So, does anyone remember the three levels? So, literal, then ethical, transcendental. So, the literal level, we get some purification. At the ethical level, we get some edification. At a transcendental level, we get satisfaction, we get ecstasy. So all these three levels we discussed. So while there are, as we approach at the ethical level, the dissimilarities are between terms of abilities and form, but similarities are the desires that characters have and the responsibility for their action, that their choices have consequences. So we focus on the ethical aspect and then discuss three incidents for Hiranyakashipu's life. So how he processed adversity. The adversity of his brother's death. What did he do? He blamed Vishnu. So instead of looking at what wrong he had done or his brother had done, he focused on what wrong had been done to him. So he was blaming instead of introspecting. So I'm not taking this and saying that it's good. Rather, this is what he did. So he didn't introspect at all. Then the next thing. Then what was his? That was his way he processed. Then he said, "What is the solution? The problem is, Vishnu is a tricky person." So he blamed. He didn't introspect, and then his solution was increase his power. So the solution to problem is for him is not increase virtue, not try to learn what might I have done wrong, what can I do to do anything more right. He didn't think in those terms at all. And thinking in terms of power differentials alone characterizes an ungodly demoniac nature. And he talked about how the increase in power, whether in the past was done through austerities, modern times compared to technology. Increasing powers during austerity or developing technology itself is not the problem. Why we are doing it? There's jnana, gyeya and jnana gamya, the objective of knowledge. So in the history of science, as power increased, the rejection of God increased more and more. We started with theism, then it went to deism, and then it went to atheism. So when power is thought for its own sake, then that power corrupts us. The last part we discussed was how he tried to seek immortality through trickery. And immortality, he saw through trickery, and that will not work. It didn't work even in this life because the power he had got, that didn't satisfy him. So yes, immortality is the soul's longing, and that has to be sought. But that is sought by raising our consciousness to the spiritual level. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
We can take a couple of questions. Thank you very much. But this is all just one person we're talking about. Yes. Now, what happens if you incorporate association into that? In other words, others now become involved. For example, in Kansa, he was also of this mind power, but at one point when he was just about to chop off his sister's head, his sister's wife, Vasudeva, he appealed to him and spoke and, kind of talked to him and talked him out of it. And we see that somehow then when he went back and he got associated again with his demon friends, then they talked him back into being a demon. So I didn't hear anything about Hiranyakashipu had no association or just bad association, or he was just so powerful his association didn't matter.
Yeah. One of the characteristics of powerful people is that they can't tolerate other powerful people who have opinions different from them. So he was surrounded by yes men. What is that saying? Like a very autocratic boss, let's say, to his team members. All of you are perfectly free to express your opinion, as long as you agree with me. So he was surrounded by yes men, and there's no description of he had, like in Ram Leela we have Ravan had Vibhishan who was a dissenter. But there's no description as far as I have seen either in the Bhagavad Puran or in the Acharya's commentary on the Narasimha Puran also. There's no dissenter in his ranks. So maybe he was just, everybody, those who were likely to dissent were so fearful that they wouldn't speak out their minds, or he had just surrounded himself by similarly evil people. So they just went along with his plans, it seems. So association can have a deterrent effect if a person is receptive to that association. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for your session. If you can just take a single pastime and walk us through the different levels, how we, perceive the scriptures, like the literal, ethical, and transcendental, just through one pastime, so that I understand like how deep, with example.
Okay, how can one pastime be understood at all three levels? Well, you could consider the Bhagavad Gita itself. The Bhagavad Gita is spoken on the Kurukshetra war field. So at a literal level, as I said, if you consider the Gita, now the Gita is being spoken. So at a literal level, there was a war, and Arjuna was undecided about what to do. Should I fight or should I not fight? And he said, I will fight. That was his decision. So at a literal level, the war occurred. The war happened. So that's the literal level. Now somebody can take it only at the literal level. There was one Indian political leader, he said that India's greatest mistake on getting independence was that it did not follow the Bhagavad Gita. Well, okay. I was intrigued. I saw he passed away about 5-6 years ago. So there was some headline in the newspaper. I was flying from one place. I saw this newspaper headline. Very interesting. Then I googled what was his understanding. He said if India had followed the Bhagavad Gita, as soon as Pakistan was formed, India would have attacked Pakistan and annexed Pakistan. That is following the Bhagavad Gita. So for him, the literal from that time is transplanted here literally. So literal alone it doesn't work. None of the acharyas who have commented on the Bhagavad Gita, Ramanacharya, Madhvacharya, Vishwanath Thakur, they all lived in times when there was Islamic reign, often exploitative, religiously intolerant reign in India, and many phases of their history. But it's not that they said that you shouldn't fight against them, but they did say that fighting against oppressors is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. None of the commentators said that. The essence of the Bhagavad Gita is that we need to surrender to the will of God. We need to devote ourselves to God. And then what would be the will of God for us? That will vary upon time, place, circumstance. In Kali Yuga, the Lord has descended Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then Harinam Sankirtan is his way to destroy the demoniac tendencies in the hearts of people. So we participate in that. So literal level is that the war actually happened. Now, so at the ethical level, we can say dharma, or what is dharma? The right thing to do. Dharma doesn't mean religion, it just means the right thing to do. Puchchami tvam dharma sammudha chetaha. So how do we know what is dharma? We can say we follow Shastra, but ultimately dharma is to karishye vachanam tava. I will do your will. So trying to connect with the Lord and then understanding His will. That is at the ethical level. We resolve ethical dilemmas in our life by understanding it at the ethical level. Now at a transcendental level, we see the Bhagavad Gita simply as a book about Bhagavan and Bhakti. This is Krishna speaking. Every word is coming from the all-attractive Supreme Divinity. And He is ultimately glorifying Bhakti. We talk about Jnana, we talk about Dhyana, we talk about Karma Yoga, but ultimately His purpose is Sarvadharman Parityajamam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. So at a transcendental level, we see this book as glorifying the Supreme Sadhan and the Supreme Sadhya. The Supreme means, that is Bhakti, and the Supreme ends, that is Bhagavan. And at that level, we relish it. Okay? Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
So how does the literal level of the purification?
With the?
How does the literal understanding lead to purification?
How does the literal understanding itself lead to purification? I'd say lots of the literal understanding of the literal approach itself. Somebody just hears the stories. If they hear the stories simply as entertaining stories, at least the Lord is coming within their mental horizon. Now, how much purification will happen, that will depend. I was a few years ago. I was in Florida. I had gone to some Hindu program, and it was a Bhagavad Gita. So I asked, "How many of you? Do any of you know about Narasimha?" So they all like blank faces. And one of them said, "Wasn't he the former Prime Minister of India?" They didn't know about Narasimha Dev. They knew something about Narasimha Rao. So, if there are some TV series about very sacred characters, and people may take them, oh, these are just stories, okay, fine. At least it's coming in their mental horizon. Now, the literal approach, now this could be in today's world in terms of technology and through TV, but in the past people would hear the stories, oh, this is all literally possible. People are not scientifically minded so much. They may not have questions itself. Is this literal? Is this symbolic? Is this something deeper? No, it's a nice story to hear. It's about the Lord. We love the Lord. So there is that level of purification. Now, for a deeper level of purification, that's why I said the difference is, at the literal level, the purification happens only during hearing. While we are hearing the Lord, pastimes, we get purified by that. But if there is ethical also, then purification happens after the hearing also. Because we apply those principles in our life to choose wisely. During and after hearing. Both. At the transcendental level, there is no need for purification because purification is already there. That's simply this. Nirutta tarshairupagiya manat bhavaushita shrotra manobhiramat ka uttama shloka gunanuvadat puman virajyet vina pashughnat. Right at the start of the 10th canto, it is said that all different kinds of people can relish Krishna Lila. Those who are not yet purified, for them this is like a medicine. And for those who are purified, this is simply like nectar. Okay. Thank you. Yes, Jimmy.
Thank you so much, Ravi. I don't know how to express it. Let me try. Hiranyakashipu was a real demon. When he had the power and he had the knowledge to do what he did. But when you compare it to the technological mechanism that we are going after these days, It doesn't seem like the power is in one hand. It seems like maybe there are deviant individuals who are propagating this kind of technological advancement, and they get the people hooked onto it. Or how do we see this in terms of power towards deterioration in human or spirituality?
Okay. So, what you're saying is, in the time of Hiranyakashipu, there's one evil, despotic person. But now it seems that there may be a few people like that, but they are also corrupting the values of everyone. Yes, that is true. Power can be perpetuated in many different ways. One is that you directly make people evil. That I am evil and people do that. You just make everybody else believe that there is no right and wrong, there's no justice in the world except the justice that we create ourselves. And that means we're not accountable to anyone. We have to, if somebody has done something wrong, or if we think that somebody has done something wrong, it is for us to punish them, that's all. So that is one way to do it. But the other way to do it is that you cannot crush everyone. You cannot, in today's world, there is some level of human awareness. So, say, slavery has been more or less banned in the world, like literal physical slavery. So, one of the ways to weaken people is to, say, if in a hospital, in a mental asylum, for example, if a patient is becoming very violent, very aggressive, and they anesthetize them, sedate them. So in today's world, in many ways, technology is like the sedative. It's like people just get so hooked on technology and they forget the real world and the real problems in the world. Whether my life has any meaning or not, whether I am doing anything meaningful, what is going on in the bigger world, it doesn't matter, I just get sedated. So, yes, that is also one way in which our values are being corrupted. So, when there are evil, powerful people, it could be person or people. So what do? Either they can corrupt others, they will corrupt others. But they will corrupt others is one way is that they will make them evil. The other is that they will literally enslave them. Or they will just anesthetize them. They will just distract them. They will sedate them. So you don't oppose us. You just get along with our plans, whatever we want to do. So there are various ways in which the powerful will try to manipulate and subordinate the powerless. So one of those ways is being manifested in today's world. And that's why it's important that Uttishtata, Jagrata, Prapya Varam Nibodhata. That more and more people awake.